Nampak ke? Sekejap Okay. Kita start Okay, start. So, okay, hari ni kita akan tengok pasal urinary system. Learning outcome. So, urinary system. So, ada 4 organ yang terlibat dalam urinary system ni, which is kidney, ada left kidney dengan right kidney, ureter, urinary bladder dengan urethra. So, ureter ni functions dia to carry urine and allow the urine to pass through from the kidney. Maksudnya dia bawa urine daripada kidney ni. Function urinary bladder ni pula an organ in the lower abdomen to store urine. Urinary bladder ni lah yang simpan kita punya urine. So, urethra ni adalah axis of urine kita. So, korang kena ingat lah kalau urinary system, dia ada 4 benda yang penting dalam urinary tu. Lepas tu ni, effector organ ni adalah functions of urinary system. So, functions dia adalah regulations of plasma ion compositions, regulation of body water volume, regulation of blood pH, productions of hormones, and excretions of waste. Ni gambar about urinary system. Kan kita ada left kidney dengan right kidney. Kalau korang perasan, right kidney ni is a bit lower sebab because of liver kind of hanging down over it. Left kidney ni is slightly higher. So korang kena ingat lah, kalau kidney, right kidney tu dia ke bawah sikit. Left kidney dia ke atas sikit. So organ yang terlibat, kidney, ureter, tempat kita allow urine kita lalu, urinary bladder simpan kita punya urine, dengan urethra ni axis of urine kita. And then kidney. Kita pergi tahu kat kidney. Kidney ni ada 2 bahagian, which is outer portions dengan inner portions. Cortex adalah bahagian outer portions, and medulla adalah bahagian inner portions. Dekat dalam medulla pula, dia ada renal pyramids and renal columns. Urine goes into renal pelvis. Each are made of major and minor calyces, then out of ureter. So, ni gambar kidney. Kan Lisa cakap tadi kan dia ada 2 bahagian, which is outer dengan inner portions kan. So, yang renal cortex ni adalah bahagian outer dia, bahagian luar dia. Yang medulla ni pula bahagian inner dia. Dalam medulla dia ada renal pyramid. Nampak tak bentuk piramid ni? Dia panggil renal pyramid sebab dia bentuk piramid lah. Lepas tu dia ada renal column. This one. And then dia ada renal papilla yang colour putih ni. Baru renal pyramid. Renal pyramid ni dia separuh tau. Separuh-separuh. Faham tak? Kalau renal medulla besar ni. Kalau renal pyramid macam ni. Lepas tu, ni renal capsule. Yang kat luar ni. Kat tepi ni. Ni renal artery. Ni renal vein. Renal artery ni tempat darah masuk. Nanti kita tengok lepas tu renal vein ni tempat darah keluar. Ni nephron. Nephron ni adalah tempat filtration berlaku dalam glomerulus. Okay. Lepas tu ni adalah part of urine. Daripada collecting duct, dia pergi ke minor calyx, major calyx. Lepas tu dia pergi kat renal pelvis ni. Lepas tu dia pergi kat ureter. Dia pergi urinary bladder. And then out of urethra. Lepas tu, ada orang tak ni?
Ada.
Lepas tu, kita pergi tengok dekat. Ni korang kena ingat lah nama-nama dia, okay? Lepas tu kita pergi dekat renal blood supply, which is blood flow through kidneys. Kan salah satu function of kidney, dia tapis darah kita kan? Okay, so kita tengok gambar ni. Ni dia punya dia start daripada mana, akhir dekat mana. Kita gambar ni. So, blood flow to kidney. So first, darah kita akan masuk melalui renal artery. Okay? Akan masuk melalui renal artery. After that, dia akan pergi dekat segmental arteries, which is yang ni. Branch of renal artery ni. Dia dah masuk renal artery and then dia pergi dekat segmental artery. And then dia pergi dekat interlobar artery. Yang ni. Ni. Nampak tak? Nampak kan? Lepas tu, dia pergi dekat arcuate arteries. Makin kecil. Okay. Ni. And then, bila dia pergi arcuate arteries ni, dia akan pergi masuk dekat interlobar arteries ni. Nampak tak? Dia lagi kecil. Lepas tu, dia akan masuk dekat afferent arterioles yang ni. So, bila dia dah sampai dekat afferent arterioles ni, dia dah masuk part of nephron, which is kat sini lah kita punya filtration berlaku. Bila dia dah, so korang kena ingat lah kalau dalam soalan tanya lah, start dari mana dia masuk dekat tempat nephron ni, start daripada kat sini. So, dia dah masuk ke afferent arterioles, so dia akan pergi dekat glomerulus capillaris. Dekat glomerulus capillaris ni lah akan berlaku filtrations. Ada kita tengok. So, bila dia dah masuk, as blood flow through glomerulus, water, cell and waste diffuse into the Bowman capsule. So, nanti kita tengok dekat part nephron. Bila dia dah masuk, darah dah masuk dekat glomerulus ni, dia akan pergi dekat afferent arterioles. Kat sini. And then, dia pergi dekat peritubular capillary. Lepas tu dia pergi dekat interlobar vein dekat sini. Dia dah start nak keluar. Lepas tu, dia pergi dekat arcuate vein. And then dia pergi dekat interlobar vein. And dia keluar melalui renal vein. So, dia masuk dekat renal artery, keluar melalui renal vein. So, korang kena ingatlah part of blood flow ni. Daripada renal artery, dia pergi segmental artery, interlobar arteries, arcuate arteries, interlobar. Ini interlobular arteries, afferent arterioles, dah masuk kat part of nephron, dia pergi kat glomerular, kat sini dah berlaku kita punya filtrations, and then dia pergi dekat afferent arterioles, peritubular capillaries, yang ni, yang colour purple ni. So dia pergi dekat interlobular vein, arcuate vein, interlobar vein, and then dia keluar melalui renal vein. So kalau korang tak faham, jom kita tengok ni, YouTube. Nampak kan? Oh gitu So pangkal lah presentation slide ni. Macam tu Okay. Nampak tak? Serius lah. Sekejap. Okay, okay. Sekejap Sorry. Nampak kan? Okay. So, macam kita tengok blood supply through kidney.
Very important organs when it comes to filtering the blood, among other things. But in order to really understand how they function, we have to look at the blood supply to the kidneys. And that's what we're going to be doing in this video. Let's do it. Hey, what's up? Leslie Samuel here from Interactive Biology TV, where we're making biology fun. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at how blood gets to the kidneys, through the kidneys, and then back out of the kidneys to go back to the heart. Now, we all have hearts, fortunately, and the hearts are responsible for pumping blood throughout the entire body. The major vessel that leaves the heart to get to the bulk of the rest of the body is the aorta. Now, the aorta goes down through the thoracic region, down into the abdominal region, and as it's traveling throughout the body, it is sending off different branches. Now here we're looking at the abdominal aorta and some of the branches that are coming off of it. As you can see, we have blood that's coming down through the abdominal aorta, and then we have these two branches, one going to the left kidney and one going to the right kidney. These are your renal arteries. Whenever you hear the word renal, you know it's referring to the urinary system. And in this case, it's the branches that are coming off of the abdominal aorta and going to those kidneys. Now, let's take a closer look at what's happening here. Now, once again, we have the renal arteries, one on the left and one on the right, and that is sending the blood to the kidneys. About 20% of the blood that's leaving the heart actually goes via the renal arteries to get to the kidneys. Then the renal artery is going to split to go to the different sections or the different segments of the kidney, and those arteries are called segmental arteries. You have these branches and they're going to the different regions. These are then going to split into other branches called interlobar arteries. And I remember this by saying they're going in between the different lobes of the kidneys. And really what I mean by this is the pyramids that you see in the kidney, those are what I'm referring to as lobes. Now, as those interlobar arteries are going in between those pyramids, you're going to see it reaches a point where it kind of arches. And that, where it arches, that is when it becomes the arcuate arteries. Arcuate referring to that arc, it's going around the pyramids. And then it's going to send off these branches called interlobular arteries. Now, I know this is a lot of terms to learn, but I want you to understand the sequence and how the blood is going to get to the different parts of the kidneys, and more so to the functional unit of the kidneys, which are the nephrons. And this is where it happens. Off of those interlobular arteries, we're going to send off these little tiny branches, and those are called the afferent arterioles. This is really how the blood is getting into these nephrons. And the nephrons are the functional units of the kidneys. We're going to get into more detail about the nephrons in the next video. For now, you just need to know this is where the bulk of the processing is happening. From the afferent arterioles, we're going to get to a very important structure called the glomerulus. This is where the filtration is happening. This is where we're going to go into much more detail in the later videos. And from there, we're going to go via the efferent or efferent arterioles, taking the blood from the glomerulus down into an extensive network of capillaries that we call the peritubular capillaries. Woo, that's a mouthful. And there's a lot of important stuff that's happening right here. But for now, what I want you to know is that in the nephron, we have the afferent arterioles going into the glomerulus, going into the efferent arterioles, and down into this extensive capillary bed called the peritubular capillaries. Now, we've gotten the blood to the kidneys, we've gotten them to the nephrons, the functional unit, and now we need to take the blood away from the nephron, away from the kidneys. And we're going to do this via the veins. And what you're going to notice is that just like we have all these named arteries coming into the kidney, we're going to have these similar named veins going away from the kidneys. And we're going to review that in a sec. For now, let's revisit what we have so far. So we have the abdominal aorta. That's the main vessel coming off the heart. That's then going to send off our renal arteries going to the kidneys, our segmental arteries going to the different sections of the kidneys. We're going to have then our interlobar arteries going in between the pyramids. It's going to then arch around and give us our arcuate arteries. Then it's going to send off those interlobular arteries, which are going to send off the afferent arterioles. And from the afferent arterioles, we're going to go into the glomerulus where the filtration is really happening. We're going to leave the glomerulus via the efferent or efferent arterioles, which then sends off those extensive peritubular capillaries. And from there, we have to go via the veins back. So this is how it's going to work. The peritubular capillaries on the venous end is going to lead to the interlobular veins, which is then going to go via the arcuate veins to the interlobar veins. And then depending on which textbook you're reading, you're going to see something different here. You're going to see in many cases it skips the segmental veins and go into the renal veins so that it can go back via the inferior vena cava to the heart. Now, I said depending on which textbook you read, because in some textbook it will actually include the segmental veins. I want you to know that that is an option, but in most cases you're just going to see it going from the interlobar to the renal veins and then back to the inferior vena cava, which then goes back to the heart. That is the entire process of sending blood all the way to the kidneys, through the kidneys, and out of the kidneys. In the next video, we're going to dive deeper into the nephron, the structure, and its function. So I'll see you over there.
Uh-oh. Dạ. Okay, so tadi tu video pasal blood flow through kidney. So korang kena hafal lah ni. Dia start dari renal artery and keluar, ada masuk melalui renal artery, keluar melalui renal vein. So dekat glomerular capillaries ni lah akan berlaku filtrations. Okay, lepas tu kita akan pergi tengok nephron. Nephron ni are the little filtering units of the kidney. So dekat sini lah dia menapis darah kita yang menapis darah kita. Nephron ni unit of renal functions, corpuscle and tubule. So basically nephron ni adalah unit untuk kidney menapis kita punya darah tadi. So daripada glomerulus ni sampai habis ni adalah dari mana dia start sampai mana dia habis. So kita tengok gambar ni. Okay. Nephron. Okay. So kita akan start with glomerular, which is ni, glomerulus. Kan Alisa cakap tadi darah bila dia dah masuk dekat efferent arterioles, dia akan pergi dekat glomerulus ni kan. So as blood flow through glomerulus, bila blood dah masuk dekat sini, part ni, water, salt, waste diffuse into the Bowman capsule. So benda-benda yang penting dia akan pergi dekat Bowman capsule ni. So dekat sini lah start filtration kita. And then dekat macam huruf C ni, nama dia Bowman capsule. And then after that it goes to proximal convoluted tubule. So dekat sinilah berlaku reabsorptions, which is reabsorptions of nutrients, ions, water, plasma protein, important cell into the blood vessel. So dekat sini berlaku reabsorption, mana-mana benda yang penting dia akan into the blood vessel. So blood tu ada nutrients and others. And then after that, it goes to descending limb of lobe of Henle, which is ni, dia ada dua. Nampak tak anak panah ni? Which is mula-mula dia akan pergi dekat descending limb of the lobe of hell. Lepas tu dia akan pergi dekat ascending. Mula-mula descending and then ascending. After that, dia akan pergi dekat distal convoluted tubule, which is DCT. Dekat sini. So dekat sini, only waste like urea, some water molecule are proceed into DCT sebab kan kita dah tapis kat sini. So benda-benda penting macam nutrients tu dia dah pergi dekat into blood vessel. So tinggal yang tak penting untuk dijadikan untuk dia keluar melalui urine. So dekat DCT ni lah yang waste lalu. Only waste like urea, some water molecule are proceed into DCT, which is distal convoluted tubule. And then dia akan bawa pergi collecting duct, which is yang ni. And then dia akan bawa pergi ureters, urinary bladder, and then last sekali keluar dekat urethra. So bila cakap pasal nephron ni, korang kena ingat daripada mana dia start, apa proses yang berlaku dekat situ. So korang kena ingat dekat proximal convoluted tubule ni lah berlaku reabsorptions. And then dia pergi dekat ascending limb, dia pergi dekat descending limb, and then dekat distal convoluted tubule, which is DCT. Dekat sini adalah waste macam benda-benda yang tak penting lalu dekat sini. Dia bawa pergi collecting duct, keluar jadi urine. So kita tengok video. Sekejap Kalau korang tak faham, kita tengok video ni. Sekejap Kita tengok ni. Pasal nephron.
Nephron, structure and functions. Objective: to understand the structure of a nephron in detail. The excretory system in human beings consists of a pair of kidneys. A magnified view of the longitudinal section of kidney shows two prominent regions, a cortex and a medulla.
So kidney dia ada bahagian, ada dua bahagian, which is cortex dengan medulla. Cortex ni outer portion, medulla ni inner portions.
Zoom into the cortex region. It shows the presence of numerous nephrons. Each nephron has a Bowman's capsule, a proximal convoluted tubule, a loop of Henle, a distal convoluted tubule that leads to a collecting duct. Nephrons are convoluted in the cortex region and straighten out as loops in the medulla region. Each nephron has a Bowman's capsule, which is a cup-shaped structure that has a layer made of squamous epithelial cells. In the cavity of the Bowman's capsule, there is a bundle of capillaries known as the glomerulus. The blood vessel entering the Bowman's capsule is known as the efferent arteriole and is thicker than the blood vessel exiting the capsule, which is thinner and is known as the efferent arteriole. The Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus together form the Malpighian body. This capsule extends into the proximal convoluted tubule, PCT, on the inner side. This tubule is lined by a brush-bordered epithelium with numerous microvilli. This PCT leads into the loop of Henle, which lies in the medulla region. It is U-shaped and has a descending limb and an ascending limb. This further leads into the distal convoluted tubule, which is again seen in the cortex region, and it finally joins the collecting duct. As blood flows through the glomerulus, water, salts, and waste diffuse into the Bowman's capsule. This liquid then passes into the PCT and the loop of Henle, where water and important salts are absorbed back into the blood vessel. Only the waste material like urea and some water molecules proceed into the DCT, where more water may get absorbed into the interstitial fluid. This liquid formed is the urine, which is released into the collecting duct. This finally trickles through the kidney into the ureter, which helps the passage of urine into the urinary bladder. After a while, the urine can be excreted from the bladder. To summarize, the excretory system in human beings consists of a pair of kidneys. The longitudinal section of kidney shows two prominent regions, a cortex and a medulla. Inside the kidney, we observe numerous nephrons. Each nephron has a Bowman's capsule, a proximal convoluted tubule, a loop of Henle, a distal convoluted tubule that leads to a collecting duct. In the cavity of the Bowman's capsule, there is a bundle of capillaries known as the glomerulus. As blood flows through the glomerulus, water, salts, and waste diffuse into the Bowman's capsule. This liquid then passes into the PCT and the loop of Henle, where water and important salts are absorbed back into the blood vessel. Only the waste material like urea and some water molecules proceed into the DCT, where more water may get absorbed into the interstitial fluid. The liquid remaining in the DCT is the urine, which is finally released into the collecting duct.
Okay, sekejap Saya nak share window je. So, setakat ni ada apa-apa tak nak tanya? Aduh, kacang. Sakit lah. Apa? Darah yang pergi dekat kidney tu
Ulang soalan. Yang tak beroksigen.
kan betul ke salah
beroksigen. Explain lah.
Ya, betul lah. Tu je kan? Okay, sebaik. So, kita pergi tengok dekat basic operations. So, basic operation ni, this summary of urine information tau. So, korang kena ingat, dekat urine information ni dia ada 3 basic process which is glomerular filtrations, di mana filtrations dekat kidney kita berlaku. And then dia pergi dekat tubular reabsorptions, dia reabsorb needed compound sahaja and water from filtrate. And then it goes to tubular secretions, secrete some materials into filtrate, and then yang lebih tu, dia akan let it go out as a solution called urine. So benda-benda yang lebih like waste tu dia akan keluar dalam bentuk urine kita. So ni gambar macam nak lagi terperinci lah. So kan darah tadi dah masuk dekat afferent arteriolar kan. So dia akan goes to masuk dekat nephron and then dia akan goes to glomerular capsule. Dekat glomerular capsule ni filtration from blood plasma into nephron. Dekat sini dia akan goes to afferent arterioles and then dekat sini dia akan berlaku tubular reabsorption which is benda-benda yang penting macam nutrients akan reabsorption into blood. Benda-benda yang tak penting macam waste dia akan pergi dekat dalam bentuk fluid dekat renal tubule ni, dia akan goes out as urine. As urine. Okay. Ni filtration pressure, blood pressure for filtration, opposed bipolar osmotic pressures and capsular pressures. Afferent and afferent arteriolar diameters adjust to maintain a net filtration pressure even with small change in blood pressure. Filtration pressure ni maksudnya berlaku tekanan darah lah untuk filtrations. And then glomerular filtration rate ni, ini adalah rate dia. So it determines net reabsorptions because it determines filtrate flow. Ni sympathetic. Okay, ya. Ni glomerular filtration ni lah yang macam mana Aisyah cakap berlaku filtrations dekat nephron. Lalu dia masuk dekat glomerular, darah masuk dekat afferent. So dia dah masuk dekat part of nephron. Dia pergi dekat glomerular ni. So dekat sinilah berlaku nanti filtrations and then go to dekat sini berlaku reabsorptions dan sebagainya. So Asal tak cakap tadi kan darah darah masuk dekat afferent. Darah masuk dekat tak payahlah. So ni kita tengok video ni kalau nak lagi faham lah.
Glomerular filtration. Kidneys are bean-shaped organs which filters blood. It removes waste substances from the blood and regulates water and electrolyte concentrations within the body fluids. The end product of this function is urine, which is excreted outside of the body through urethra, containing wastes, excess water, and excess electrolytes. Urine formation involves glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption, and tubular secretion. The nephron is kidney's functional unit. At the beginning of the nephron, the glomerulus is a network, tuft of capillaries that performs the first step of filtering the blood. The glomerulus is encased in thin, double-walled capsules called Bowman's capsule. The space inside the capsule and surrounding the glomerulus is called Bowman's space. As the blood travels through these capillaries of glomerulus, filtration causes a lot of plasma contents to spill out into Bowman's space through the glomerular filtration membrane. It consists of three layers of capillary valve: endothelium, basement membrane, and epithelial podocytes. This membrane allows some particles of blood to pass through, but not all. The fluid that is filtrate from the capillary blood into Bowman's space is called filtrate and forms the primary urine.
Okay, dah habis. Hmm. So, kita akan pergi dekat tubular reabsorptions. Bila dia dah tubular reabsorptions ni dia berlaku dekat proximal convoluted tubule, which is PCT. Dia active transport of solute, osmosis move water, cell distal to proximal tubule find to reabsorptions under control. Ni tubular secretions. Dia akan berlaku dekat DCT, distal convoluted tubule, which is yang benda-benda waste, light waste, dia akan pergi dekat collecting duct. Tubular secretion ni take place all along tubule. Ni major substances dia, which is contain ammonia, urea, creatine, drug like penicillin. Tubular secretion ni pun helps to regulate plasma pH. Then dia pergi dekat urine route. Urine route ni dekat mana kita punya urine akan keluar. Bila dia dah tapis, kan dekat nephron ni kan. Bila dia dah habis tapis kan, benda-benda waste tu dia akan pergi dekat collecting duct. Which is collecting duct tu the last part of nephron and participate for excretion, which is dia akan keluar melalui urine. So urine route ni lah mula-mula daripada nephron dia akan pergi ke collecting duct, and then dia akan goes to ureter, which is tempat urine kita flow daripada kidney, and then ureter to bladder. Urinary bladder ni tempat kita simpan urine, and then through urethra. So kita tengok video ni for urine informations.
The kidneys filter blood plasma, removing metabolic wastes, toxins from the body, and excrete them in the form of urine. During this process, they also maintain constant volume and composition of the blood, or homeostasis. Blood enters the kidney via the renal artery, which divides to smaller arteries and finally arterioles. The arterioles get into contact with functional units of the kidney called nephrons. This is where blood filtration and urine formation take place. The filtered blood is then collected into a series of larger veins and exits the kidney through the renal vein. The urine is collected in collecting ducts and leaves the kidney via the ureters. Each kidney contains over 1 million nephrons. A nephron is composed of two major parts, a capsule known as glomerular capsule, or Bowman's capsule, and a long renal tubule. Renal tubules of several nephrons connect to a common collecting duct. There are 3 steps in the formation of urine. Glomerular filtration takes place in the Bowman's capsule. Tubular reabsorption and secretion occur in the renal tubule. Water conservation happens in the collecting duct. Blood enters the Bowman's capsule via the afferent arteriole, passes through a ball of capillaries called the glomerulus, and leaves via the efferent arteriole. The afferent arteriole is significantly larger than the efferent arteriole, creating a blood flow with a large inlet and small outlet. As a result, the blood hydrostatic pressure in these capillaries is much higher than normal. Hydrostatic and osmotic pressures drive water and solutes from blood plasma through a filtration membrane into the capsular space of nephron. The filtration membrane acts like a sieve, allowing only small molecules to pass through. These include water, inorganic ions, glucose, amino acids, and various metabolic wastes such as urea and creatinine. This fluid is called glomerular filtrate. The amount of filtrate produced per minute is called glomerular filtration rate, or GFR. The GFR is kept at a stable value by several feedback mechanisms within the kidneys. This is known as renal water regulation. The GFR is also under sympathetic and hormonal control. GFR control is generally achieved by constriction or dilation of the afferent arteriole, which causes the glomerular blood pressure to fall or rise, respectively. In a healthy person, the total filtrate volume amounts between 150 and 180 liters a day. However, only about 1% of this is excreted as urine. The rest 99% is reabsorbed back to the blood as the filtrate flows through the long renal tubule. This is possible because the efferent arteriole, after exiting the Bowman's capsule, branches out to form a network of capillaries, known as peritubular capillaries, which surround the renal tubule. The first part of the renal tubule, the proximal convoluted tubule, reabsorbs about 2/3 of the filtrate. In this process, water and solutes are driven through the epithelial cells that line the tubule into the extracellular space. They are then taken up by the peritubular capillaries. Sodium reabsorption is most important, as it creates osmotic pressure that drives water, and electrical gradient that drives negatively charged ions. Sodium level inside the epithelial cells is kept low thanks to the sodium-potassium pumps that constantly pump sodium ions out into the extracellular space. This creates a concentration gradient that favors sodium diffusion from tubular fluid into the cells. Sodium is absorbed by some port proteins that also bind glucose and some other solutes. Nearly all glucose and amino acids are reabsorbed back to the blood at this stage. About half of nitrogenous wastes also reabsorbs back to the bloodstream. The kidneys reduce the blood levels of metabolic wastes to a safe amount, but do not completely eliminate them. Some of the reabsorption also occurs by the paracellular route, through tight junctions between the epithelial cells. At the same time, tubular secretion, where additional wastes, drugs, and other solutes leave the bloodstream to join the tubular fluid, also takes place. The processes of reabsorption and secretion continue in the nephron loop, the loop of Henle, and the distal convoluted tubule. However, these parts of the tubule also have some other important functions. The main function of the loop of Henle is to create and maintain an osmolarity gradient in the medulla that enables the collecting ducts to concentrate urine at a later stage. The ascending limb of the loop actively pumps sodium out, making the medulla salty. The descending limb of the loop is permeable to water but much less to sodium. As the water exits the tubule by osmosis, the filtrate gets more and more concentrated as it reaches the bottom. The ascending limb, on the other hand, is permeable to ions but not water. As a result, the filtrate loses sodium as it goes up and becomes more diluted at the top of the loop. The medulla is in equilibrium with the loop and hence has the same salinity gradient, more salt at the bottom. Reabsorption and secretion in the distal convoluted tubule are under control of various hormones. This is how the kidneys respond to the body's needs and adjust the composition of urine accordingly. The collecting duct receives tubular fluid from several nephrons. The main function of the collecting duct is to concentrate urine, and therefore conserve water. This is made possible by the osmolarity gradient generated by the loop of Henle. As it gets saltier deep in the medulla, the filtrate loses more and more water as it flows down the collecting duct. The collecting duct is also under hormonal control, so it can adjust the amount of reabsorbed water accordingly to the body's state of hydration. For example, when the body is dehydrated, more water is reabsorbed back to the blood and the small volume of excreted urine is more concentrated.
So basically apa yang dia terangkan dekat video ni, dia terangkan balik pasal proses of nephron tau. So korang kena tahulah proses nephron ni macam mana. And korang kena hafal ni lah dari mana dia start sampai dia habis. Okay. So ni korang kena ingat lah. Contoh macam dekat PCT, proximal convoluted tubule, apa yang diabsorb into blood. Contoh water, amino acid, apa yang dia secretions into urine. Ni korang kena ingat lah. At least ingat lah 2 ke. Takutlah dia tanya kan. And then pergi dekat ni terbaik. Ya. Sekejap Okay. Okay, component of urine. Ini adalah component of urine yang ada dalam urine kita. It also depends on diet and state of health kita. Urine kan ada color dia kan. So dia depends on diet and state of health kita lah. And then okay, pergi kat sini. Regulations of water reabsorptions. Nes ada lagi kan?
Ada.
Yang ni. Nampak tak? Nampak kan?
Nampak. Nak Nes explain sekarang ke?
Nes nak
Okay.
petang?
Tak apalah, Nes. Explain dulu lah.
Alisa guna Alisa punya kan?
Lisa guna Lisa punya je. Okay. Yang regulation of water absorption ni, water absorption dia berlaku dekat kidney yang kena kontrol oleh hormon vasopressin, which is dia very similar dengan structure oxytocin. Korang ingat kan yang negative feedback tu?
Ingat.
Oxytocin dengan vasopressin ni dia similar structure dia. Okay. Vasopressin ni dia cause greatly enhance water absorption by the kidney and is sometimes known as the antidiuretic hormone yang ADH lah. Okay.
ADH.
Ada yang tak faham ke? Korang faham ke? Okay, kejap okay. Kalau water absorption ni, some stimulus dia disrupt homeostasis. Korang tahu kan proses homeostasis tu macam mana? Okay, dia decrease blood water concentration dalam kidney. And then osmoreceptor in hypothalamus. Okay, hypothalamus ni dia ada dekat otak, and then dia dekat dengan pituitary gland. Korang tahu kan? Okay. Hypothalamus tu yang mengeluarkan antidiuretic hormone. Okay, lepas tu
Hormon ni.
dia increase release of ADH dan cell in DCT and collecting duct become more permeable to water, which increase water reabsorption. that increase blood in water concentration. Lepas increase blood in water concentration, dia akan return to proses yang awal sekali, yang blood water concentration. Okay, ada soalan? Tak ada? Okay.
Tak ada. Okay.
Macam bukan nak tanya soalan ke? Oh tak. Okay, Lisa sambung.
Okay. So, kita pergi dekat urine route. Ni sama je macam yang dekat sini tadi tau. Kat mana tadi? Dekat sini. Daripada collecting duct. Sebelum pergi collecting duct ni, dia pergi dekat nephron dulu, berlaku filtrations. And then after that, waste yang waste tu, dia akan pergi kat collecting duct, ureter, urinary bladder, and then dia keluar melalui urethra. So, itulah urine route. So, dia pergi kat collecting duct, calycis, ureter. Ureter ni line with mucus and transitional epithelium. And then pass under bladder, full bladder prevent blood flow. And then bladder ni directly in front of rectum can stretch 700 to 800 milliliters. Smaller in female because of uterus. Dekat perempuan je lah. Sebab ada uterus. And then dia ada 3 layer of detrusors muscle. And then dah pergi kat bladder, dia pergi kat urethra untuk keluar. Internal urethra sphincters, external urethra sphincters voluntary. So, ni. Ini adalah gambar of urine route. Then nutritions. Micturations ni adalah process of expelling urine from the bladder. So urination lah. Dia ada autonomic reflex, internal sphincters. It respond to stretch like rectum. It also parasympathetic, detrusor muscle contractions, consensuous control external sphincters. So, itulah. Ni egging. Penuaan. Kidney string, it decrease in capacity, decrease berlaku dehydrations, and then urinary tract infections. Dekat males, it have prostate enlargements, goes to frequent urinations and slow flow. Females are more prone to leak of external sphincters. So, ada apa-apa ke nak tanya? Kita tengok balik apa yang kita Alisa terang kita start dari sinilah. Urinary system, it consists of 4 organ. Kalau dengar je urinary system, dia ada 4 organ terlibat, which is left kidney and right kidney, ureter, urinary bladder and urethra. So korang kena tahu lah apa functions dia. Ureter ni tempat urine lalu, urinary bladder tempat kita simpan urine, urethra ni tempat keluar urine kita. So kan ada 2 kidney, which is left kidney and right kidney. Left kidney ni is slightly higher and right kidney ni is a bit lower because of liver kind of hanging down over it. So korang kena ingat lah, right kidney dia ke bawah sikit. Left kidney ni dia atas sikit. And then ni kidney. Kidney divided into 2, which is outer portions and inner portions. Outer portion adalah cortex and inner portion medulla. Dalam medulla dia ada renal pyramids and renal column. Urine goes into renal pelvis. Maksud dia urine goes into renal pelvis lah. And then out of ureter. So ini adalah gambar kidney. Ini adalah outer portion, which is cortex. Ini inner portion which is renal medulla. Dalam renal medulla it have renal pyramid. And then dia ada renal column, renal papilla yang ni kalau putih ni. And then renal capsule, this one. And then renal artery tempat darah masuk, and then renal vein darah keluar. Ni renal hilum, ni nephron, dalam ni ada glomerulus which is tempat filtration berlaku. Ni pad of urine, start daripada collecting duct, it goes to minor calyx, goes to major calyx, renal pelvis, and it goes to urethra, urinary bladder, and last one, urethra. And then ni adalah renal blood supply which is blood flow through kidney. Korang kena hafal lah ni. Dia start dari mana and then last kali keluar kat mana. Okay. So start daripada renal artery. Ni. So bila dah masuk dekat afferent arteriolar ni, dia akan masuk dekat nephrons. And then dekat glomerular capillaries ni lah berlaku filtrations. And then nephron ni adalah salah satu unit of filtration of the kidney. So dekat sinilah berlaku filtrations. So sama juga macam kalau dengar bunyi bising tu sorry tau. Ni sama juga macam blood supply ni. Ni korang kena ingat. And then ni korang kena ingat lah korang kena ingat lah flow of nephron ni. Start daripada glomerulus and then dia pergi dekat proximal, pergi dekat descending and ascending, and then dia pergi dekat convoluted tubule DCT which is dekat sini ada process of waste, and then dia akan pergi dekat collecting duct, goes to ureter, urinary bladder, and goes to urethra. Ni basic operations. So korang kena ingat ada summary of urine formation ada 3 basic processes which is filtrations, tubular reabsorptions, and secretions. And then the rest go out as a solution called urine. Okay, this one. And then ni glomerular filtration, tubular filtration pressure, rate, tubular absorption, secretion, urine road dari mana, and the last one dia akan keluar melalui urethra. Ni pun korang kena tahulah. Dia sambungan daripada part of nephron tadi tau. And then ni pun korang kena ingatlah sikit apa yang dia absorb dekat proximal convoluted tubule and secretion dia dekat sini and so on. Okay. And then ni hormonal regulations. ADH yang Nes terangkan tadi dekat sini, regulation of water reabsorption, urine route, and yang ni, and then aging. And then dah habis Pak Alisa. So nanti kita sambung part Nes bila Nes nak sambung nantilah. So ada apa-apa soalan? Kalau tak faham, lepas ni kalau tak faham boleh Cik Alisa ke apa ke. Ada apa-apa? Satu je. Apa? Ada soalan ke?
Tak ada.
Tak ada. Okay, bagus.
Tak ada, Miss.
Good. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yelah tu. Okay.
Saya nak
Tak tahu.
dah lah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.